Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Reaching for the Sun from 1941. And this is continuing my quest to review as much of William Wellman's filmography as I possibly can. Russ, played by Joel McCrea, who is a happy kind of clam digger, I guess, living in the forest, and then one day he comes across a truck moving a bunch of automobiles who get stuck, which he helps out, and the guy who runs the truck tells him about a car plant where he could make $5 a day and make a lot more money than he is currently making, and that he get and save up for an outboard motor for his boat that he could catch even more clams than he is already doing. So he does this so he can afford his outboard motor, and he makes friends with this guy Benny, played by Eddie Bracken, who most people my age will remember as the nice old man from Home Alone 2. They strike up a friendship, and he falls in love with the girl who runs the local lunch spot that's right near the automotive line, Rita, played by Ellen Drew. And he eventually ends up staying where the plant is and not going back to the forest like he originally planned, because he falls in love with Rita and marries her, and they eventually have a child. And he's trying to kind of get back there while dealing with the responsibility of his new life and making money at the automotive plant. This has to be the strangest William Wellman film I have seen. And Wellman's not really known for being a strange filmmaker, but this film is quite strange. It starts off as a comedy, it feels like a comedy at the beginning, it has a lighthearted tone, and it ends almost like a serious melodrama or something. And it even has kind of a big, almost like a robot fight sequence. I don't think they're really robots, but these two giant machines fighting each other. It's just kind of all over the map what's going on in this movie, but it all somehow works. And it actually kind of uses Wellman's usual idea of having a main character and his friend go through life together, much like in Public Enemy or Wings or even Central Airport or Wild Boys the Road. It's constantly like he likes to have a main protagonist and his buddy who are going through life together, and that's true with Russ and Benny, played by Joel McCrea and Eddie Bracken. Wellman definitely has a good center to it, and he was kind of more of a modest, economical filmmaker who really wouldn't make something as strange and all over the map as this, but because he has a nice core to it and this core relationship between the two guys and Ellen Drew as Rita, he kind of gives it kind of a little more reality to it, even though you're having these huge tonal shifts where, 10-15 minutes later you'd be laughing and then they have a serious argument and you're like, whoa, this is like not the movie I thought I was seeing. I was kind of surprised how shifty it was, because Wellman always seems to have a way to evolve his characters very slowly, so you don't even realize it. I often think about how he's commented on as being very sentimental, but he usually uses that sentimentality to kind of just destroy it and say something with the lack of sentimentality, and how you might be sentimental for your family, but over time, people die and things change and so forth. And in this film, he doesn't really give you, like, A Star is Born is a slow evolution of the character. It doesn't feel as slow. I almost think of this as kind of like a weirder, quirkier, like Heroes for Sale in a little bit of a way. And it is really about the labor force of this automotive industry and what that kind of does to you after a while, especially when things don't turn out so well or the plant closes for a little bit because they're saving money or whatever. But it really wasn't as much about that as it is about Russ, Rita, and Benny. The only real straight comic character is Eddie Bracken's character, who apparently preview audiences loved at the time. And I quite liked him. I thought he was really good. He was a good kind of comedic sidekick, and he kept the comedy idea. This film was categorized as a comedy going throughout it, even if Joel McCrea and Ellen Drew's characters were often getting into serious marital arguments. It's kind of surprising. The tonal shifts and how things are kind of brought up, especially he has this problem with this one guy who kind of likes his wife, and then at the beginning of the film they fight, but then he seems to almost go away and then it comes back. And Wellman definitely had central ideas to this, and it was at least a smartly written screenplay by W.L. River based on a book by Wessel Smitter, and W.L. River was actually blacklisted. There are some political edges to it, but it's such a quirky, weird movie. I'm just surprised Wellman would make a film like this, but he almost seems to excel in it. He kind of relished the idea of making a film this strange and with as many twists and turns as it brings you. It's not as modest and economical. I mean, it is economical in terms of how it tells the story, I guess, but what it puts you through as an audience doesn't feel very economical. You know, it's almost like Wellman knew how to do that, and he's a good enough storyteller to get you through this. Clearly, I guess he knew the script was a little offbeat, but he seems to know how to navigate through doing all this anyway, and how a film that starts off as like a silly comedy where two friends are like, you know, singing outside a place where you pay for girls to dance with you, to end with kind of a robot fight and all that, and you know how this went from a guy who wants an outboard motor to he's married and there's a robot fight. To see to be believed. That's probably why it's so unavailable, is because it's hard to categorize and it's kind of an odd film. I do like that him and Joel McCrea, you know, they worked on Buffalo Bill later, and I didn't really like that film. I would have liked Joel McCrea and William Wellman to have worked on a film where Joel McCrea really played a real Wellman protagonist, and I think he really does. You know, he's stubborn, he's set in his ways, he definitely like has a core belief system about him, and like all he really wants is like this motor. Like that's how he got into all of this, and I think he really represents a real Wellman protagonist, someone who doesn't really fit into society and plays on his own rules. He's not like an outlaw, a badass kind of character like Cagney was in Public Enemy. He's from the forest, he's a different kind of guy. I think Joel McCrea played that off very well with kind of a smug innocence to him. I've read a lot of things, people are like, it's like Wellman tried Preston Sturges. I kind of get that, but I feel like it's just because Joel McCrea was involved, and Joel McCrea is a really good comic protagonist, much like he was in Sullivan's Travels. I liked Ellen Drew, who I don't think I've seen in anything before. I feel like I have. She was very beautiful, and apparently it was going to be Barbara Stanwyck's part, which would make sense because her and Wellman loved working together, but unfortunately she had like an eye injury or an eye operation she needed to recover, so she couldn't have been in it. I kind of would have liked that, but I think Ellen Drew did an excellent job, and her and Joel McCrea have amazing chemistry. I mean, you can sense that that couple would actually be married. You know, it's very strong chemistry throughout this film. I'm not going to act like this is one of Wellman's best films, and it's kind of not a great example of William Wellman, although it slightly is, but it shows, I think, what an interesting director he was, that he could kind of get through something like this film, that he could make this film kind of into a very William Wellman picture while still being not a very William Wellman picture. And it shows a testament to him as a director and him as an auteur that he could really get through that. But I think the real fun of this movie is if you studied William Wellman like I have for so long and throughout all these films, is how different it is, and how it's kind of like that weird spot in his filmography. And it is kind of a weird, quirky movie. It has extreme tonal shifts and all sorts of things going on with it. But then like the whole title and the whole idea of it almost reminds me of So Big, and kind of like a melodrama in a lot of ways. So it's really all over the map. There's a lot of different things going on with it, but it seems to do it magnificently in a weird way. I'm not going to act like this is an amazing Wellman film. I don't love it. I could tell it was like, it's a little hard to get behind in some spots, but I kind of like, oddly, this movie fascinates me, and I actually really like it. So if you have seen Reaching for the Sun and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to. And the next film in my William Wellman series will be Island in the Sky, and that will be coming up soon, but I hope to see you then, and thank you for watching.